G'day. In 2025, Lando Norris is going to have to pay an extra €435,000 for his F1 super license. Is he being penalised? And why is Max paying €200,000 less than he did in 2024 for his super license? Let me elaborate. Every F1 driver has to stump up a whole host of cash in order to gain a super license, and to race in Formula One you have to have one of these super licenses. But the price of each license is tied to how well you performed the year prior. That sees the world champion in 2025 paying about 100 times more than the bottom driver. Well, actually the bottom 4 drivers, because there are 4 drivers who are paying the minimum. They are Jack Doohan, Gabriel Bortoleto, Isaac Hadjar and Kimi Antonelli. Those 4 are paying less than €12,000 for the same piece of paper that Max is paying more than $1 million for. Let me run through how the fee is calculated. For a start, there's a base fee. Every driver pays €11,453. That's up about 10% from last year, which is way more than inflation. On top of that, a driver pays €2,313 for every point that he scored the previous season. And who does he pay it to? The FIA. That's the body that runs Formula One, not the marketing side of it. That's Formula One management. This is the organisation that looks after all the rules and the regulations, and they need money to perform their duties, and one of the ways they get it is through this F1 super licence fee. And where does this money go? To improve safety, I'm told. But like a common tax, those who earn more pay more. Before I get into the exact figures, let me tell you that getting a super license requires a whole host of criteria to be met. You need to be at least 18 years of age, although last year that rule was bent. FIA was approached by Mercedes and Williams, and it was agreed that they would look at situations on a case-by-case basis, primarily due to Kimi Antonelli. There was some talk he'd be going to Williams, and they wanted to make sure he would be able to drive if he actually started prior to him turning 18, and he also needed to drive in some FP1 sessions for Mercedes. So that was the stimulus for the FIA to change their regulations around the minimum age. You need to complete at least 80% of 2 full seasons in a single-seated championship. You have to have an international Grade A competition licence, pass a theory test on F1 rules and regulations, score at least 40 points in a driver's 3 most recent racing seasons, and that can be in the likes of F1, F2, F3, IndyCar and a whole lot of other series. A couple of you might be thinking, does a driver need a super licence to do an FP1 session? No. Well, they do need a licence, but they get a free practice only super licence. Now let's go back to Max Verstappen's payment this year of just over €1 million. That's based on him amassing 437 points last year, which came out at just over $1 million, plus his base fee. That brings him to a total of €1,022,234, down by just shy of €200,000 on the year prior. And he still won the Drivers' Championship. But who pays that fee? Well, it is the team normally. But if you have a look at, say, Red Bull, they're going to have to pay out $1 million for Max, but they've probably earned $110 million in prize money coming third in the championship. So I don't think they're begrudging having to pay out 1% of that as a super licence fee. Let's go down the list now. Lando Norris. Last year paid $441,000. This year, nearly double that, $876,204. But is that the biggest bump up on this list? No. Charles Leclerc's third in terms of this year's payment, $443,000 to $834. But it is Oscar Piastri who has seen the biggest jump in his super licence fee. He paid $214,000, well, the team anyway, paid $214,000 in 2024. This year, €686,715. That is €473,000 more. Carlos Sainz from $430 to $682. George Russell from $378 to $577. A small jump for Lewis Hamilton from $502,000 to $527. Now to the first reduction in super licence fee, and it's this man, Fernando Alonso, going from $443,000 last year down to $173,000. Saves his team $270,000, of which they wouldn't be too happy about, I promise you. They would have much preferred to pay a whole lot more for Fernando's licence, which meant they would have performed a whole lot better. Pierre Gasly pays about €32,000 less this year. A bump up for Nico Hulkenberg from 29,000 to 106,000. Same for Sonoda, 46,000 to 81,000. Lance Stroll went backwards by about 100k. Esteban Ocon saves 67k. Alex Albon saves about 28,000. Then we get down to the newbies. Well, actually, Oliver Behrman's not a newbie. He's done 3 races. He's not even a rookie anymore. He'll be paying 27,640 euros, or his team will be. Liam Lawson, not a newbie either. He goes from 14,600 last year to 21,000. And then the 3 drivers who have not yet raced in Formula One, being Gabriel Bortoletto, Kimi Antonelli and Jack Doohan, and all paying the base rate. Oh, and Isaac Hadjar. A couple of interesting things here. Red Bull actually pays 363,000 fewer euros for their licence because Sergio Perez is not coming back to the team. Instead, they're paying out for Liam Lawson a pittance of 21,000, so they're saving some 342,000 euros. Franco Colapinto, well, if he gets a drive this year, he'll be stumping up 23,000 for his super licence, but that's assuming he does get a drive. And then I thought, what happens with Oliver Behrman and his super licence fee, because he raced for Ferrari, and I imagine at that point they would have had to have paid the base fee for him, and I've not been able to get clarification on this, so if you know, I'll be glad to see your comments below. What happens then with Haas? They used him for 2 races. Do they have to pay 2/3 of his base fee, or was he just on loan from Ferrari, and as such, Ferrari pick up that tab? Your thoughts below too. And for those newbies, if you're wondering how these drivers score these points, it's a very simple table. You get 20 for a feature race anyway, 25 for a win, down to 1 for 10th place. In the sprint races, the first 8 score points, 8 down to 1. And what will the FIA pocket from all of these super licence fees this year? About 5.9 million euros. When I did this video last year, a lot of you were quite amazed that a driver would be slugged so much money for performing well. They thought it was a real penalty. I understand why they do it. They need money in the FIA, and this is a good earner. And while they take the money from the drivers, the payments come from Formula One management. So in effect, the FIA is somehow taxing Formula One management for these licenses through prize money. And as I mentioned earlier, the teams pay this on behalf of the drivers. There is no prize money in the World Drivers' Championship. So Max finishing on top with 437 points. That does not translate into any cash coming into his pocket from Formula One. But what he would have in his contract, no doubt, are performance bonuses that would say if you get a podium, you might get this much. If you're first, you might get this much. But certainly a driver in the top 2 or 3 teams would not be awarded a lot if they finished 9th or 10th, because they're expected to be a lot better than that. But a driver in, say, the worst team, Sauber, if they score a point or 2 points, say 10th or 9th, that would be quite a bonus for them because that's not expected. And an even bigger bonus if they happen to finish on the podium, like Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon did in Brazil. Now, while a super licence is granted by the FIA, they can easily take it off you. How does that work? Well, Kevin Magnussen suffered that indignity. There is a demerit point system, and if you hit a top limit, as Kevin did, you lose your licence for a period. He lost it for 1 race. And while that was a real disappointment for Kevin, that was music to Oliver Behrman's ears because he got to step in and take a drive from the Danish driver. There have been more than 400 drivers who've got a super licence. There's only one who's had his super licence revoked by the FIA, and that was Japanese driver Yuji Ide. Back in 2006, he came in driving for a Japanese team, caused a whole lot of incidents very early on in the season, and by May, the FIA said, no, we're going to revoke his licence. He's not up to standard. Hopefully you've learnt a little bit more about the F1 super licence system. Before you go, look at that. This is a 4-kilogram supersized F1 Best of 2024 book that you can get online at kimellman.com and order. And if this is out of your budget range or you don't have room for a book this size, the smaller mini coffee table book might be more to your liking. And there's also a Best of 2024 wall calendar. One final thing, could you like and subscribe before you leave? Thanks for watching.
And stay passionate.
This is the organisation that looks after... Oh, that's not fucking right. And he still won the F1 World Cup. Who pays that fee? Oh,